Most of us text a lot. We text our friends, family members, Uber drivers, and naturally, our romantic partners. Texting can be the ideal tool to quickly express yourself, but only if you're aware of all of its potential dangers. This is especially relevant today, in a world that is increasingly engaging the virtual sphere and where communication is spanning different countries and cultures. Can you imagine how many texts are sent around the world every minute? According to Apple, in 2014, they managed 40 billion iMessages every day and 200,000 iMessages every second. And that's even in 2014. And that number has increased every year, especially recently, as people have engaged in remote work and virtual social activities. Here is a fun texting phenomenon you may be familiar with. You send someone a super lovely text, like, "How about going for lunch this weekend? Are you free?" They read it, they even start typing, and then poof, nothing. 1 hour later, 10 hours later, 10 years later, nothing. You've been left on red. And experts have discussed various reasons why this may happen. Someone can be caught in the day's chaos, want to avoid the conversation topic, or maybe even partake in ghosting, which we will discuss later. Whatever the reason may be, this is just one aspect that shows how tricky texting can be, whether it's a romantic, platonic, or workplace setting. Whether you're a confident texter or a hesitant one, there are certain things you need to keep in mind when texting, especially when conversing with friends or romantic partners. So, what should you be on the lookout for so your relationship isn't left on red? When I think of texting, I immediately think of emojis. Emojis were created in Japan in 1999, but became popular in other countries only after 2010, when they were incorporated into Unicode, which is a digital standard used to represent different numbers, letters, emojis, and other characters. Here, you might want to say, aren't emojis the perfect way to add flavor and emotion to your text? Well, before you say that, here is a fun story for you. A couple of years ago, one of my friends, Emma, was studying abroad in Italy and became acquainted with an older Italian couple, Mia and Damiano. All three of them got along well, would hang out, and they got a group chat going over text. A couple of weeks in, Emma and Mia decide to have a ladies' night out. Damiano is not invited. They go get dinner, go to karaoke, they're having a great time. Around midnight, Damiano sends a text to the group chat. Like, "How's your night going?" Mia responds, "Great." And Emma sends a rock-on hand emoji. Less than 10 seconds later, Mia's phone rings. It's Damiano. And he goes, I see why I wasn't invited. Well, turns out, in Italy, in certain contexts, the rock-on gesture, which resembles the horns, can imply cheating and be considered an insult. Emma didn't know this, but Damiano thought she was implying that Mia had engaged in some questionable behaviors during their night out. Awkward. And this story is just one example of the potential cross-cultural miscommunication that can arise from emoji usage. As noted by linguistics experts, due to the lack of a standardized system of emoji usage, it opens up the road for potential misinterpretation and, at the very least, conversational confusion. And there are different emojis that would be considered offensive or rude in certain countries, but perfectly normal or even playful in others. What would you think if you received the poop emoji? That it's funny, silly, sarcastic, rude? Well, in Japan, it's actually considered a symbol of good luck. In Japanese, the word for poo is unko, which shares the un sound with the Japanese words for luck. For some reason, a 2015 SwiftKey survey found that Canada is the #1 country in its poop emoji usage, so that's interesting. I thought they'd be too polite for that, but who knows? By the way, I think you'd be less surprised to know that heart emojis are used the most by French speakers, and emojis related to the cold weather are very popular among Russian speakers. Yeah, no surprise there. Maybe you've had that moment when you look at a text someone has sent you and think, is this even within the realm of the English language? Using abbreviations or replacing words with numbers or letters is a common feature of texting slang and can involve, for instance, using the number for instead of the word for, or the letters UR instead of your. And if you get one of those, you're probably going to figure it out fairly quickly or eventually. But what if you get something like this? This says, "You are awesome, as far as I know. Hope this helps. You're welcome. Bye for now." Can you guess what this means? One person, maybe? No? Yeah, this means, let me Google this for you. Easy stuff. How about this one? In case you missed it. Relevant. It may seem that messages like these are intentionally confusing, but in certain cases, they can help establish in-group status. Partners or friends may develop certain combinations that only they know between each other. For instance, for the purpose of discussing taboo topics or preventing others from snooping in on the conversation. And it can be a good way also to strengthen one's connection with someone else and bond. An example from an Indiana University researcher looks into a unique case of texting slang usage. Two roommates would text each other hey with two Y's, and if only one Y was used, it meant trouble was stirring and some negative feelings were involved. They didn't have to verbalize this. It was automatically implied through the nuances of the message. And this kind of signal can be helpful to open up a conversation. Like if your friend does something that bothers you and you don't know how to approach the issue or make your feelings known. In other words, it can be a good way to translate body language and nonverbal cues to the texting medium. Here's another thing to keep in mind. Sometimes you'll be trying to text something important and you know what will make its way into the conversation? The LOL. Like, you're kind of a jerk, LOL. Let's stop being friends, LOL. And I think many of us have figured out that using the LOL can dampen any harsh feelings a text may be trying to convey and can make it seem less angry. And this can work in some cases, but not be so great in others. According to linguistics experts, the LOL may be perceived as passive-aggressive and can make a message lose its meaning and seriousness. On the other hand, texting as a medium may be viewed as a way for quick and easy communication. So perhaps if you have something serious, important, or meaningful to discuss, just pick up the phone and call, or FaceTime, or Zoom. There are a lot of options nowadays. Now, raise your hand if you've ever resorted to texting when you felt too shy or quiet to do something in person. Different studies have shown that texting can take anxiety out of the equation, providing a sense of comfort and confidence. Maybe you've met the one person who is all shy and quiet in real life, and then over text or online is like, woo, fire emoji, kiss emoji, heart emoji, flirty phrase, smooth transition, another flirty phrase, 2 fire emojis. And it's like, who are you? Well, research has shown that the ability of a text message to be edited and perfected to display the texter in the best light can lead them to be idealized by the recipient of the text. And if this image isn't carried over to real life, it can create a lack of consistency and stability in the relationship. Here, I would like to emphasize the importance of not over-relying on texting, especially when you're just trying to form some kind of relationship. There was an interesting situation observed by an Indiana University researcher, and this situation occurred with a female undergraduate student. She would text with her romantic interest a lot, but when the two were face-to-face, they would never talk. All they would do is kiss. And although some of you may be going, nice, this eventually led to the breakdown of the relationship because it created a disconnect. And it's frustrating for many young people when the transition between texting and real life doesn't happen, or the conversation is very different between real life and the technological medium. We've talked about misinterpretation when it comes to emojis and slang, but what about the situation when nothing is said? That's right, I'm talking about ghosting. Ghosting has been investigated by different linguistics experts and can be broadly defined as the action of cutting off communication with someone abruptly and without explanation in order to end a relationship. And this doesn't just apply to romantic contexts. It can happen with friends or even with family members. Ghosting is an example of how one party, the ghoster, might think that they are sparing the second party, the ghostee, from an awkward or upsetting confrontation, conversation, etc. But more often than not, the ghostee might be even more offended and upset than they would be otherwise. At the end of the day, ghosting is convenient for the person who does it and demonstrates another way that the texting medium can create ambiguity and provide a passive approach to a situation. So, let's summarize what I discussed today and what you should keep in mind when texting. Being on the lookout for cross-cultural differences when using emojis, like my friend Emma didn't do. Not overusing the LOL when it comes to serious conversations. Avoiding getting stuck in the texting medium to prevent your real-life communication from struggling or failing altogether. Now, you've probably been waiting for some general tips on how to be the world's best texter, which I can't guarantee will be the result, but here are a few things that you can do. Number 1, the similarity between your texting behaviors and those of your friends or partners is important. According to an expert from the City University of New York, between romantic partners, the similarity in the frequency of texting hello or starting up a conversation over text contributes to relationship satisfaction, potentially because it demonstrates thinking about and caring for the other person. Number 2, be flexible in how you interpret a text message and have a dialogue if something seems confusing. And also be aware that even minor elements of your text may be paid attention to and analyzed. According to a Canadian linguist, periods at the end of sentences sent over text can be perceived as passive-aggressive because periods aren't viewed as necessary elements of texting and can be associated with a change in tone and other nonverbal cues. So just a heads up for all you punctuation lovers out there. And as a final tip, give typing a break and talk to people more in real life. Thank you.